Hey guys, I'm Pranavi Nissan. Welcome back to another video. Today I'll be talking about one of my most recent reads, which is Thousand Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. So Thousand Pieces of You is the first book in a trilogy called the Firebird Trilogy. The Firebird is a young adult science fiction slash romance trilogy. The first book is Thousand Pieces of You. The second one is 10,000 Skies Above You, and the final book is A Million Worlds Without You. So this series came up in my Amazon recommendations, and after reading the premise, I found it really intriguing and interesting, and I read it. And I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. So I've given this book a 3.7 on 5 stars. So without any further delay, let's talk about the plot and what I thought about this. The trilogy of Firebird is based on the concept of multiverses. So you know the concept that everything that could be happening is already happening somewhere. So there are millions and millions and millions of universes out there in which everything that could have happened is already happening. So in another parallel universe, I'm not making this video. In another parallel universe, I'm wearing a blue sweater instead of a pink sweater and making this video. So all the possibilities have been played out somewhere in the multiverse. So the entire Firebird trilogy is based on the concept of multiverses. So coming to the plot. The plot is about Marguerite. Marguerite is a young woman whose parents are scientists. So her parents are working on the concept of multiverses and finding a way to travel to all these multiverses and come back safely. So they invented a device called the Firebird. When a person wears the Firebird, a Firebird is just a small locket kind of thing. When you wear it, it enables you to travel to other dimensions and come back safely. So when you travel to another dimension, you go into the body of yourself in that dimension, and the Firebird allows you to do this. So Marguerite's parents are hugely well-renowned scientists who invented this technology, and they have two research assistants called Paul and Theo. So before the day, or before a while before this technology was to be introduced to the world and shown to everyone, Paul, their research assistant, steals the Firebird, kills her father, and runs away to a parallel dimension. So it's a perfect crime. Nobody's ever going to find out where Paul is gone because he took away the only Firebird prototype with him. So this is the beginning of the plot, and it follows Marguerite and the other research assistant Theo following Paul through the dimensions, trying to bring him to justice and avenge Marguerite's father. So the premise was really, really intriguing to me. Usually I don't go for science fiction because it always goes above my head, but this concept was something I always thought about a lot. The concept of multiverses and fate and destiny, and how some things don't change even if you go to another dimension or another universe completely. So when I read the premise that this is a travel through dimensions and to different possibilities, I was instantly intrigued. And moreover, it was not just a romance and science fiction, it was also a mystery, because you're trying to find out why Paul murdered Marguerite's father and how he's running away. So it's a race against time, because you have to keep chasing him through dimensions, or else he's lost forever and he'll never be brought to justice. So I found the plot to be really intriguing, and the beginning was really, really action-packed and interesting, because it starts with a murder and then you're chasing the murderer, but also you're not chasing him in your own world. You're going to different worlds. You're seeing different possibilities in different countries, in different languages. So it was very, very interesting. Review. As I mentioned before, this is a young adult science fiction slash romance novel. So I don't think it was just science fiction and romance. It was also a murder mystery, which was very intriguing to solve. And moreover, I don't think it is that much of a science fiction book, because there's very less sciencey stuff in this. The only technology you hear about or talk about is the one about Firebird and the one related to multidimensional travel. There's not much of a science fiction aspect to it. That is the only one science fiction aspect to it, that is the multidimensional travel. The rest of the book is just a young adult romance, because there's a love triangle. Which young adult book doesn't have a love triangle? There's it's a 70% romance and 20% science fiction and 10% of a murder mystery. I didn't think I would have so much fun with it, because usually when I'm going into science fiction, I'm like really focused and I read it very carefully so as to not miss any physics stuff or sciencey stuff. But this was a very easy read, because you understand what's happening in the plot and the science aspects of it, but there's not a lot of it to really focus on. So if you're a huge science fiction fan, I don't think that this book is for you, because it's not really that much about science. It's more about the romance and the chemistry between the characters. Coming to the chemistry between the characters, I thought that the characters were really well formed. I mean, they were not the best characters I ever came across, but for a young adult uh, romantic novel, the characters were quite interesting. So we have three main characters here. The first one is Paul, who is accused of the murder. The second is Marguerite, who's the ultimate protagonist, and the final main character is Theo, who is the second research assistant. So obviously there's a love triangle between these three, and I mean, it's not a spoiler, you know it from the first chapter itself. And then there is betrayal, and there's a lot of angst and chemistry between these three characters. Like, you know who to root for, because it's not an unpredictable uh, love triangle. Like, you know who's going to win in the end, but still too, it was written quite well. The story part was written very well, the concept was very well, it was full of potential, because this is not just about the romance between the characters, it was something much bigger than that, which you come to realize as the plot proceeds. And I like the way it was time paced and written. And the thing I had a problem with was the way these things were written, like the actual writing. The writing is not the greatest writing I ever came across, because it doesn't fulfill the potential of the plot. The plot is having so many possibilities, so many ways it could go, and the characters are having so much potential, but I don't think they were explored as much as they deserve to be. The writing is just straightforward and simple, and you can expect what's going to happen most of the time. And that was the problem I had, the writing, because these characters, Paul, Marguerite, and Theo, were formed really well. Like, you could see how well the characters could do as the plot proceeds, because but I don't think the potential of the characters was really explored. It was kept really basic, but I could see a lot happening with these characters instead of what already happened in the book. Maybe that will happen in the second and third books. I never know. I mean, I will know when I read them. But in this book, I was thoroughly underwhelmed by the character development. I mean, things were happening really quickly, and you didn't really get a chance to connect with them as much as you would like to. And the main character is a piece of work. She's a bit of a train wreck, because I don't know. I feel like most of the female protagonists are always train wrecks. They're making bad decisions, and they are quite naive and impulsive. And this character felt like a cliche too. She's quite impulsive and naive, and um, she makes many bad decisions. So that was the problem I had with this book. Apart from that, I really liked the plot. And another thing I liked very much about this book was, as you move through dimensions, you also see the different possibilities, the way the way the story of these three characters could have played out in other dimensions. So uh, in this dimension, they are in America and they are scientists, and Marguerite is a painter. But in another dimension, they are all in London and they three have never met. And in another dimension, they are in Russia, and Marguerite is a princess, and the other two are in the other corners of the world. So it was very entertaining and fun to see how vastly different life can be. I mean, you see the butterfly effect in its most glorious form. Like, a small thing that could happen today would change the future that's going to happen in 10 years. And you see that in this book. And it was so fun to read that. And I also listened to the audiobook while reading the actual ebook. So while listening to the audiobook, you get to listen to the characters in their native accents. So when the story was in America, you could hear the audiobook in an American accent. But when the story moved on to Russia, that is in another dimension, where this was happening in Russia, the character spoke in a Russian accent, and it was so entertaining to read, because I always love exploring different accents, and I really like that part of the book. The moving through the world, seeing the world, and then there's a part where the story happens underwater, and that was so intriguing as well. And the mystery aspect in this book also was really good. This is another minor setback of this book, because the mystery was really good. I mean, it could have been emphasized more than the romance. I mean, this book is more about the romance and the love story between the characters, but I thought the mystery aspect of this book also was very good. Finding the murderer, I mean, we already know who the murderer is, but But as you keep chasing Paul through dimensions, you know that it's not as simple as it appears. There are very justifiable reasons behind Paul's actions. So it was really fun. So overall, considering the plot, the fulfillment of the potential of the plot and the characters, the character development, the writing and all, I've given this book a 3.75 out of 5 stars. But I really found it to be fun. If you are a person who likes young adult romantic books, this book is for you. If you're a person who likes mild science fiction and murder mysteries, this book is for you. And if you're a person who really likes science fiction and has read a lot of science fiction, I think you'll find this book underwhelming. But I still think you should give it a try, because I really like the concept of multiverses and traveling through these multiverses. So yeah, I think I'll definitely read the second book, because this book had laid out a real good foundation for the trilogy to be built upon. And I'm really excited to start the second book, which is 10,000 Skies Above You. And I'm going to leave a link for the free audiobook and the free ebook in the description box below. Don't forget to check it out and share it with your friends and family. So until the next video, goodbye.